All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partners Winter 2021 Investor Conference and what we are aptly calling our 2022 Vision Event. My name is Robert Blum, Managing Partner of Lytham Partners. During this fireside chat, we welcome Avicanna, ticker symbol of AVCN on the TSX and AVCNF on the OTCQX, and their CEO, Aras, Azadian. Before we begin, for those not familiar, Lytham Partners is one of the country's leading investor relations firm with more than 2 decades of corporate access experience. We've built one of the industry's most diverse and effective platforms for connecting small companies with high quality and focused institutional investors. Today's fireside chat is hopefully another example where we can bring value to multiple constituents. We will dive into questions in a moment, but one final item, I want to remind everyone that Avicanna is available for one-on-one meetings later this week. If you've not already signed up, you can send me an email. That's Blum, B-L-U-M, at lythampartners.com, or visit lythampartners.com/virtual. There's a link to click on the one-on-one meeting request button, and that'll come through to me and we'll get you taken care of. So with that, let's begin. Aras, let's start with just a brief overview of the company and maybe a little bit of your background as well.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here today. By way of background, my name is Aras Azadian, CEO, one of the co-founders of the company. Avicanna is 6 years in now. We started off as a drug development company focused on cannabinoid delivery, focused on standardized and evidence-based approach to cannabinoids. Fast forward 6 years, the company today is vertically integrated. We do source our own raw materials from our vertical integration in South America, specifically Colombia. We are then extracting and shipping those raw materials to some markets. We're also using those raw materials for our own medical, cosmetic, and pharmaceutical products. In Canada, where we've done all of our R&D, drug development, and we believe we've established an industry-leading scientific platform. We have a number of clinical research collaborations that are going on right now. We have a number of pending patents, but we've also commercialized about 30 products. So we've taken from the scientific platform a number of cosmetic, medical, and pharmaceutical products that are now commercial in a number of different countries. So we take a lot of pride in that. We are slowly but surely building a biopharma company with global footprint, operating at an international level. Prior to this venture, I was working as a management consultant, specifically in the biotech, biopharmaceutical world. So I come from that sort of side of the industry where the focus has been on evidence-based and standardized medicine. And you can certainly see that within the vision of the company, but also within the execution over the last couple of years.
Credibility is key, obviously, in this industry. What are some of the things that the company is doing to establish greater credibility of qualified medical cannabis products, within the medical community?
That's a good question, Robert. Well, even early on in 2016, when we first started doing our R&D, we were in a very stigmatized industry, right? Cannabinoid-based, and they believe, consumers, investors. The general population believes that anything cannabis related is all the same. And because we took a very serious approach to cannabinoid-based medicine, we were actually separated from the bunch, I believe, and we were admitted into a Johnson & Johnson incubator called Jlabs in Toronto's prestigious Mars Discovery District. We've been collaborating with the largest academic and clinical institutions over the past 4 or 5 years in R&D clinical work. So we have worked with the top of the top. We work with key opinion leaders across a number of clinical pathologies, and that was all through the developmental stage. And now that we are in commercialization stage, we already have sort of entered with that level of reputation and credibility in Canada. We do have our products commercial in major Canadian hospitals, in the largest Canadian pharmacy chain called Shoppers Drug Mart. So that credibility has consistently evolved, and having that level of support from these major academic clinical institutions, key opinion leaders, I think has been a big reason why we've been successful in our pathway.
So you just mentioned Johnson & Johnson. Help investors understand what that relationship is and what that interaction is between yourself and the company.
So J&J, the world's largest pharmaceutical company, they certainly know how to look for innovation. And they have incubators they call Jlabs, and these are across a number of major cities, including the United States and only in Canada and Toronto. In Toronto, they have an incubator, which they bring in very promising biopharmaceutical and biotechnology-based companies. They provide mentorship and support. We have been the only cannabinoid-based company that's ever been admitted. We were admitted in 2017. Through that incubation space, we were provided a lot of lab space, a lot of incubation space, a lot of support, but we've also been provided a lot of mentorship from the senior execs at J&J. And that's why when you look at the Avicanna model, there's a lot of parallelisms, in that we have a skincare line that, theoretically will be within the same spectrum of Neutrogena and Avene. We have a medical division that's more focused on pain, that is sort of the Tylenol group, an OTC group. We also have a pharmaceutical division, which is similar to Janssen. So there's a lot of parallelisms that's come from that level of mentorship and support that we've had from J&J, and we take a lot of pride to be part of, to be an incubation company that has now grown to being an international publicly traded company.
Okay, now your products are primarily today sold in North America and South America. Maybe expand just on those markets for a moment, and then sort of what future expansion plans you might have into some other countries.
So the first thing that I think is important for the audience to comprehend is that within the market, the global market, let's say, cannabis is really treated in two ways. There's a medical pharmaceutical, and then there's a recreational. And I'm a big believer of the recreational side. I think it's a great industry. It's a great market. However, we don't operate within that realm. We operate within the medical and the pharmaceutical. And within the medical and the pharmaceutical, we're permitted to export. So the United Nations Convention on Narcotics permits export of products for R&D, clinical, commercial purposes when it comes to medical and pharmaceutical. On the recreational side, in the United States, you're limited to your own state. In Canada, you're limited to your own country. So we operate in a market that has the global potential. And today, our medical products are commercial in the Caribbean, in Canada, and in Colombia. Our skincare products are commercial in 4 countries. And then our pharmaceutical drugs are actually in the process of attaining marketing authorization in a number of countries in South America as well. We have so far successfully exported and done business in 13 countries. And I think that's quite unique to Avicanna, is that we actually operate within a very international sort of global marketplace, and it's because we're on the medical and pharma. So, the criticism on the pathway of the medical and pharma is that it takes longer than recreational. It takes a longer period of time to produce advanced products, do the studies, register these products, commercialize these products when they're oral, sublingual, transdermal, topical type of products versus recreational products, which predominantly is grow some cannabis, dry it, put it in a jar and sell it. 2 different pathways. So ours is slower, but ours is stickier, and ours is international, where the recreational side will never be, or at least today's narcotics convention does not permit that.
All right. So you just talked a little bit about the number of products in different regions or different countries. Maybe just help the audience understand that sort of product lineup that you have, and maybe some of the indications on the pharma side where your products are addressing.
Absolutely. So Pura is our skincare line. This is dermatology, focused on acne-prone skin, eczema-prone skin, where we've taken the benefits of CBD, combining with other natural excipients, and that's sort of the clinically backed skincare line. That's commercial today across, again, a number of countries, including Canada. We're going to be launching in the US very soon, Colombia, Ecuador. We're launching into the European Union. And that's, again, skincare, but functional skincare. Raw Phytos are medical line. So a lot of these products are used in medical institutions in Colombia and in Canada. They're used by large pharmacy chains, but they're also used by a lot of patients that are self-medicating. General areas that these products are being utilized for is chronic pain, sleep, anxiety, depression. And those are pretty big markets when you do the assessment. And then our pharmaceutical drugs, we take a clinical development pathway through sort of the US Health Canada pathway, but we also have a drug registration pathway that is already progressing. Those particular products are focused on epilepsy. So we have a particular drug candidate that we expect to have commercialized within the next 3 to 6 months that will be treating epilepsy. There's a particular formulation that's going to also be used for the treatment of spasticity, so multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, so neurological disorders. We also have a product that's in later stages in terms of neuropathic pain. So again, pretty large market sizes when you consider, especially at an international level, but those are sort of the 3 major finished product categories.
At the beginning, you mentioned sort of vertical integration. Talk through a little bit about what that strategy is, your operations in South America, and how that relates to your ultimate commercial strategy here.
Yeah, so we even though we're a Canadian company, we do all the R&D here, all the clinical. We are commercial here. I think today we have 17 SKUs in the Canadian marketplace. However, we're not a licensed producer, so we're not an LP. And that's a common thing. There's a lot of licensed producers here in Canada, but we're certainly not one of them. We operate as a biotech company here in Canada. But with that said, we realized that at some point we do want to control the source of the cannabinoids that are going into our products. And that's really because most of the products or most of the companies that are involved in the industry are predominantly focused on the recreational benefits or the adult use benefits of cannabis, which is predominantly focused on flower. We wanted to control that process and therefore built our own vertical integration in Santa Marta, Colombia, where you have 12 hours of sunlight all year round. You have optimal climate, which it's bone dry yet warm. It's a perfect place to cultivate cannabis. We can have 6 harvests per each square foot. We have several harvests a year, very low cost. We are organic certified by the USDA, and we are also, 2020, we were ranked highest amongst S&P Global Index for sustainability. So we're doing the cultivation part in a very standardized way, but yet we're using very little environmental intervention. So no fans, no lights, no heaters, no air conditioners, and are able to produce these crops that are extremely low cost, yet efficient from an environmental perspective. The combination of that supply chain model, which is already working, we've exported to 11 countries now. It's designed to supply us, it's designed to supply some of our strategic partners. But the combination of Avicanna's intellectual property, our advanced products, our evidence-based products, plus the low-cost input material really is the 1 + 1 = 3. That's really the future, is that our skincare line, our medical products, our pharmaceutical drugs are taking Avicanna's Canadian intellectual property formulations, data packages, and we're inputting the raw materials from Colombia at a very, very low price, which means we can have substantially more accessible products from a developing market perspective, but also we can do so at a high margin. So it's a very competitive model. It's going to take further time, but we already are seeing exports going into for example, United States and other markets where it's Avicanna intellectual property with Avicanna low-cost input material.
Let's circle back for a moment to the pharma side of the business. You talked about stickier but longer development timelines. Help investors understand what that process looks like, who the various regulatory bodies are that you're working with, maybe through different countries, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, everyone assumes, or many people assume, that all cannabis products are the same and all cannabis companies are the same, and it's certainly not true. And the consumers are not the same either, right? A consumer that walks into a dispensary to buy their favorite flower, they'll walk in, they'll buy it. Maybe the next time they come in, they'll want to try something different. Quite typical when you're talking about an adult use or recreational product. Medical products by their nature, medical consumers, patients by their nature are looking for efficacy or looking for functionality. And when they have it, they're content. As long as the product is affordable, it's accessible, it's consistent, they're going to stick to that product. And that's what I mean by sticky. So when a patient has a product, let's say a deep tissue gel that works very well for an older person's osteoarthritis, they're not going to come in the next day and say, let me try a different topical. Mm-hmm. If something works, it works, right? And that's kind of the sticky comment. In terms of the regulatory pathway, we take a very, very, very complex approach to this. In Canada, our medical products, which are pharmaceutical standard, are sold under the medical cannabis regime or medical cannabis legislation. So they're under Health Canada. We are proceeding with clinical development to one day have a drug identification number, a DIN, which is sort of an FDA approval in Canada as well. In the United States, we're going to be embarking on further clinical trials to get on with an FDA level IND submission as well. So we are proceeding within those pharmaceutical standards of Health Canada and FDA. However, in the short term, one of the advantages of cannabis is that in South America, specifically in Brazil, Argentina, some of the more major markets, Colombia, where we're quite active, we have the opportunity to register our drugs today within the current standards that they're at without full clinical development and attain marketing authorization and approvals to sell the products. So South America is going to be the first market where we will sell a full pharmaceutical drug, and that's going to happen in 2022. So we're pretty excited about that. But in parallel, the Canadian regulations and the US regulations will continue to evolve, but we will also do the clinical trials for those markets as well.
Okay. You have a relationship, I guess I'll call it, with former NBA player Al Harrington and your Viola product, I believe it is. Talk about that relationship, what it means for the company, and is that something that you'll look to build upon with maybe other products or other marketing type activities going forward?
Great. Yeah. So the relationship with Al was originally built around Replay. So Replay is a sports recovery brand that he owns under Harrington Wellness. They've rebranded it. We're relaunching that brand, I think, end of this year, early next year. And the formulations behind the 2.0 version of Replay is Avicanna. So we collaborated together to put together a line of products that are going to be super functional for athletes or weekend warriors that are working out, trying to recover from injuries. We have 3 SKUs that are focused on foot and ankle, muscles, and total body. This was developed by Avicanna's R&D team with support from the Harrington Wellness and Al Harrington's team of team doctors and trainers as well, who really understand the needs of athletes. So that's where the relationship started from. They're going to commercialize it in the United States. We're going to commercialize it in Canada, and then we're going to look to expand it into other global markets. And that's really Replay. Viola is Al's brand. He's built it 10 years now. He successfully has established it as a leading social equity brand, representing minority representation, which is quite rare within the cannabis industry. So I think he's done an incredible job. Given our relationship, we've helped them commercialize that into Canada now as well. So for us as a biopharma company, we don't have any type of consumer brands that are focused on lifestyle, but Viola is that. And we've helped them commercialize it, given the relationship and given the infrastructure that we have here in Canada. It's actually doing quite well. We launched it a few weeks ago, and the products are doing really, really well. So it's going to be a great revenue driver for Avicanna as well.
Talk a little bit about strategic, maybe distribution partnerships. Anything that's in place, talk through that and sort of how you look at that on a go-forward basis.
Yeah, so I think we've spent a lot of time and a lot of obviously capital in the R&D. We spent a lot of capital in terms of the vertical integration to ensure that we have the control, we have the consistency, we have the good costs in a sustainable way. And that's what we've accomplished. Now we're commercializing at a global level. I am not very much interested in building my own sales force and commercialization, distribution in every country that I'm active. So instead, on that part of the value chain, we actually work with strategic partnerships, a number of which we've already announced. So in Canada, for example, we have Shoppers Drug Mart, which is obviously very helpful. We work with the major provincial boards, Ontario Cannabis Store, Alberta, etc., that are doing majority of the sales and distribution. In the United States, we work with on our Pure Earth brand, we work with Red, White, and Blue, another public company. They have the infrastructure and the sales channels. In Ecuador, we're working with a pharmaceutical distribution company called Alliance Pharma. In Argentina, we just press released last week. We're working with a large pharmaceutical company we cannot name at this stage. They're going to do the distribution of the drugs. Similar in Brazil, similar in Colombia. In the Caribbean region, we're working with a company called Bright & Stokes. So we're working with pharmaceutical companies, distribution companies that have that vertical integration in terms of the distribution sales, and they have the commercial channels. Our job is to do the R&D, continue to innovate, continue to produce the products of the quality standards. But then when it comes to the commercialization, we work with local partners to get the products out.
So you've talked about, I think, a number of milestones that are coming up here, expected to come up in 2022. Maybe sort of summarize some of these. And if we were to sit here 12 months from now, and what are the biggest risks to some of these milestones that you're looking to achieve? Again, if we say here 12 months from now, what would have gone wrong?
That's an interesting question. So I think 2021 was a qualitative year for us. There was a lot of major milestones in terms of the launches with particular markets, the start of studies, the commercialization of particular brands. So we've actually accomplished most of the objectives we set out to do and more. So I think it's been a very successful year. The company's now very commercial, being in so many markets and with so many different irons in the fire. We feel very, very excited about what we've accomplished this year and where we're going to in terms of next year. I think next year, commercially speaking, is going to be much more quantitative year. So this is where we now focus on increasing the revenues, adding the sales efforts, into the medical channels, into the adult use channels in terms of wellness, launching the pharmaceutical drugs for the first time in particular markets, and then adding the sales, machines behind that. So we think next year is going to be a much more quantitative year for us within a commercial sense. But it also will be a very important year because our fourth and final business model, being the pharmaceutical, will finally activate in terms of revenue.
Right.
So that's really the next year. Is there risk? Absolutely. Cannabis industry, COVID, there's so many different things to consider. But what we've done in terms of our business model that is focused on proprietary, again, evidence-based products is that, we're very unique. Our products are very competitive. They're very different than the products that are in the marketplace. And, it's very difficult for people to compete with us, considering our input materials being cheaper and our products being more advanced. Because we're active in so many markets, even if a particular legislation takes a step back from a cannabis perspective, like the United States, sure, it would be great if US went federal, but I'm in 12 other countries. So if it doesn't mean that it's a complete disaster for us. So I think we've de-risked the nature of the company by being active in medical, cosmetic, pharma, raw material business. Being active at an international level gives us versatility. I think the team is very, very lean and mean. We don't have a huge amount of burn. We don't have massive capex left. So I think we're quite agile. So from a risk perspective, I think we've transformed the company to be, significantly lower in terms of risk. So I do feel very good about what's coming. I think 2022 is going to be the most significant year. 2021 so far has been our most significant year. And I think 2022 is going to consistently, at an exponential level, grow from there.
Perfect. Anything else that I guess investors should take away from the discussion today, or just anything else that we maybe haven't hit on that you think is important?
I think when you look at the cannabis related stocks this year, especially, they've been beat up. Last month has been terrible. Look at the cannabis stocks, and I think an investor needs to take a critical look at who the companies are and what they're doing. I don't think all cannabis companies are the same. I think a lot of the poor performance, the money that's been wasted by a lot of these larger companies, I think it's a shame. But the fact that all their stocks are getting beat up now probably has a lot to do with tax loss selling, considering all other sectors have done relatively well. But I think it's time for investors to really separate the types of companies that are out there. There's medical pharmaceutical companies that take a longer period of time. They have a different kind of maturity period. And they're very different in terms of management, in terms of intellectual property than recreational companies. And I think a lot of the poor performance has generally come from the recreational companies. So there's a bit of a baby out with the bathwater, in terms of labeling everyone cannabis. So I would just advise for investors that are looking at the sector to take a critical look, at the type of companies that they're referring to, and make sure they're comparing apples to apples.
Perfect. That sounds good. Well, with that, we'll leave it there. We appreciate your time today. Again, to anyone that's out there listening that has not already signed up for a one-on-one meeting, you can send me an email. Again, that's Blum, BLUM, at lythampartners.com, or go to the website, again, lythampartners.com/virtual. You can click on the one-on-one meeting request button and we'll get you taken care of. We hope you enjoy the conference. And Aras, thank you again for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.